What is a woman?
A woman is a quantum oscillation amongst 10,000 fractal paradigms in a post-constructivist matrix. Yeah.
What is a woman?
Brother man, in the Nubian cosmos, a woman transcends amongst multifaceted kaleidoscopes amongst 10,000 ancestral vibrations. Yeah.
What is a woman?
Man, we all know what a woman is. A woman is a...
What is a woman?
A woman is an adult female with almost always 2 X chromosomes. Brother man,
You
you a sellout.
I'm a straight Democrat, but I'm for the best person.
Oh, yes,
But
sir.
now, why you got Donald Trump?
Because I paid attention in school when I was a kid. I know the true history of both the Republican and Democratic Party. I know that they really didn't switch.
Duh.
During the Nixon Southern strategy, that one became more clever than the other in dealing with black people. We the Democrats, we were the Republicans' friends. We was their friends, but we were the Democrats.
Her head explodes.
How many refugees has Poland taken?
0.
And you're proud of that?
If you are asking me, if you're asking me about Muslims illegal immigration, none. Not even one will come to Poland. Not even one if it's illegal. We took over 2 million Ukrainians who are working, who are peaceful in Poland. We will not receive even one Muslim because this is what we promised.
But I asked
This
not
quota
about
system
illegal
failed.
immigrants, I asked about refugees. And Jean-Claude Juncker, the Commission President, says that you're racist. You sound proud of the fact that you haven't taken any refugees.
But this is why Poland is so safe. This is the reason why we have not even one terrorist attack. Look at the streets in Poland, and we can be called populists, nationalists, racists, I don't care.
Well, that clears that up.
In phases 1, 2, and 3, they did what no other studio could do. That every time a new Marvel movie was coming out, we all expected it to be great. We would go into the theaters not wondering if it would be great. We used to go into the theaters expecting, like it was magic. And since Endgame, that magic is gone. We've gone from expecting it would be great to hoping it'll be good.
And the Disney stock just keeps going down and down, and Bob Iger is what's going on in that stock?
Who's racist? Trump. Now tell me what makes him racist.
The fact that he called for the public execution of the 5 Central Park motherfuckers even before they went to trial.
Let's say your daughter gets raped.
I'm looking to kill a motherfucker.
Let's say your daughter gets raped, right? Now, I happen to be in the area because I was wilding, I was robbing people, harassing people. Your daughter gets raped, she's beat so bad that she can't even remember what happened.
She can't even function.
Police arrest me for being in the area, and I admit to doing that to your daughter, right? How would you feel? How would you feel? Answer the question. How would you feel? How would you feel? What did you say right before, just now? Right before I let you finish, what you was saying? No, you said you want to kill a motherfucker.
Right.
Is that what you said?
Right.
Yo, if you admit to raping somebody, whether you did it or not, you should never admit it to. And the fact that you did is okay for me to feel like that. Now, you can say Trump is insensitive for not apologizing after finding out that they didn't rape him. But at that moment, he had all right to feel like that. Just like you feel the same way.
She was stunned.
Why did you argue that religious services, religious people pose a greater risk of infection than people gathered to argue for defunding the police?
The policies restricted all types of activity in the district.
All types of activity in the district?
Yes, Senator.
Did it restrict mass protests in the district?
I don't believe it said anything one way or another.
Of course it did, because it didn't accept mass protests. If you want to come and protest, defund the police, if you want to support that, that's fine. You can gather en masse, person to person, close up, thousands of people. That's okay. You know the facts. You were a good lawyer. Why'd you lose?
Senator.
Oh, come on, Judge. Don't make me do this. Mayor Bowser was going to mass protests herself personally with thousands of people. At the same time she was doing that, she was prohibiting churches from gathering socially distanced outside wearing masks.
Rules for thee, but not for me.
Well, I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the founding fathers. Not too long ago, 2 friends of mine were talking to a Cuban refugee, a businessman who had escaped from Castro. And in the midst of his story, one of my friends turned to the other and said, "We don't know how lucky we are." And the Cuban stopped and said, "How lucky you are. I had some place to escape to." In that sentence, he told us the entire story. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth.
This is what Reagan later meant by "we are a shining city on a hill."
Hey guys, welcome to this live stream that I had to just do because, I mean, my gracious, have you seen a better joint session speech ever? I've been doing politics for a long time. I don't want to tell you how long, and I don't want to even tell you the president that I can remember, but it's a long time. And this particular speech might go down, and I'm not trying to be, I know I'm in an emotional part here because it just happened, but just trying to temper my emotions as much as possible. But I think quite possibly this speech that he gave at this joint session of Congress, I'm talking about President Trump, of course. And if you didn't see the speech, you got to go back and see it. But I'm thinking that this may be the speech that actually ended the Democrat Party as we know it. And I'm saying this for very, very quantifiable reasons. I'm going to try and pull up some statistics or some polling numbers that have come up. I haven't prepped for this particular thing, so I'm going to try and do that while I'm talking here if I can. But there was a series of polls that had come out in the past week, which showed all of the various issues that the public cares about. And the Republican Party, or in this case, President Trump's Republican Party, had the advantage in every single issue that mattered to the American people. And this is important because these issues are not only just issues that are important to the American people, but they're issues that are apolitical. They're issues that every person, no matter who you are, should be in line with. Like, we want to get rid of criminals who are coming across our border who are committing crimes. See, that's not a left or right issue. Or we want kids to be safe. We want parents to have a say in kids' education, their well-being, their medical history, or whatever it involves, their welfare. That is not a political left or right issue. I mean, we're not talking about Keynesian economics versus supply side economics, a wonky left-right ideological type of issue. No. And the reason why it's so important, and I'm pulling it up now, I hope that I can find this, is because Trump has taken all of those issues and brought them under the umbrella of the Republican Party. So I can find this here. I'm looking for it right now. I'm streaming it through. If I can find it. Just look at my, if I get screen print here, I pull up on the screen here. I want to talk about this. Let me see. Where is it? I may have missed it on the stream. Let me see. Anyway, while I'm doing this, you guys, thank you for hanging out with me. This is a stream on all of our, I think we're on everything pretty much at this point. I think Rumble's having a hard time coming up, but if it doesn't show up on Rumble, I'll put it out there after this. I can't find the polling data. This is going to make me upset because this is kind of important. Let me see. Well, I'll keep looking for it. But the point is that when you saw the shot of the audience or the crowd, you saw how the Democrats refused to clap and applaud for those type of vertical issues that I mentioned before, the ones that are apolitical, the issues that every person should stand for. Every person should support if you are American. But these Democrats acted a complete fool. Early on, I forget the gentleman's name, the guy who looked like, I don't want to say it. It's just the guy with the cane, that guy. I think it was Green. This guy was shouting and acting a fool, just trying his best just to be obnoxious and to be antagonistic. I've never seen anything like that before, ever. But to say that that never happened in American history, we would be wrong. In fact, these types of things got very, very physical, very, very loud, and in some cases, very, very violent. So this isn't unprecedented in American history. It's just unprecedented in recent history. And the reason why this is happening is because I put on Facebook and on Twitter and on True Social how we are watching the Democrat Party literally implode and die before our very, very eyes. Because you have to understand, a party like the Democrat Party is not going to just go away quietly. They're going to fight. And what we're finding out now, what we're seeing now with the behavior, and we'll talk about this in a little bit, what we're finding out now is that these Democrats are just incensed, enraged, and they put themselves into a position where they have to stand out against, I think I found it. They stand out against, no, that's not it. Let me go back here. That's not the wrong one. Sorry. But they are standing so opposed to President Trump that no matter what it is, the sky is, the sky is blue. No, it's not. It's something else. And they look ridiculous. And when you take these issues that are not the ideological issues I mentioned before, but the vertically aligned issues, like I want safe schools, or I want clean air, or I want to have a safe border. I don't want to have, men and women's sports. Here, I found it. All right, so let me pull this up here. Let me get the screen capture here. I'm gonna pull this up here. Actually, it's Greg Price's page. If I'd known that, I'm gonna pull this up here, and we're gonna go through this. So I found it. So let me just put this on the screen here. Let me share, present, file, image file. Let's do that, and let's go to screenshots. And it must be. Come on. Got too much stuff in here. Nope, wrong way. Oh, here it is. All right, let's see how this comes up. Let's take a look at this. All right, here we go. Thank you for your patience. So this is Greg Price on X. Says new Harvard Harris poll, and this is not a poll that is a right-leaning poll. It's a fairly liberal poll. Okay. But these are the issues that are aligned. And just look at this. Look at it. I mean, any issue over 60 is incredible if you talk about politics, especially today in our partisan government where everything is left or right. But again, these issues that I'm about to show you right here are not so much ideological issues left and right. It is a vertical shift. We mentioned this yesterday on our live stream on Rumble. And by the way, if you want to check us out on Rumble, we're doing a live show on Mondays and Tuesdays and Thursdays and Fridays. And go check us out on Locals as well. That's our subscription membership site over there as well. There's links in the description below. But to have this sort of partisanship and have it at 60% or greater is incredible. And what we see here is all these issues are not, again, I'm sounding like a broken record. They are not left and right issues. They are vertical aligned issues, meaning that it's not Democrat or Republican. It's not liberal or conservative, right? No. What it is it's us against them. It's the oligarchs versus the working class. It's the so-called elite versus the common American. Okay, it's something that you've seen all the time in American culture. You've seen it in Hollywood films like The Distinguished Gentleman, like Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, like Bulworth. I can think of many, many others if I thought about it. But for years, we've been looking for the kind of politician who just doesn't care, who would do right by the people, a populist type person who would do what's common sense applicable. And now we finally have one. And here is a Harvard Harris poll, which shows President Trump's policies are very popular. Let's just start at the bottom here. For instance, this is not left to right. Ending bans on offshore drilling in Alaska and elsewhere. Now, that may be an ideological issue, but it still involves giving us common sense approach of having our energy at home so that we don't have to be dependent on our enemies and potential enemies. You saw in the speakers meeting just now, in the joint session meeting or session, where Trump was talking about how Germany was buying energy or oil from Russia and turning right around and asking for America to help pay for protection from Russia for Germany. That makes absolutely zero sense. There's a video clip that we put on our True Social showing Trump saying this very much. I mean, Merkel saying, hey, why are you actually considering buying your bulk of your oil from Russia when that's just not smart? So if we can have stuff in-house in our own backyard, we are not dependent on anybody else. That's just common sense. And that's more or less vertically aligned as well. Cutting government expenditures that are already allocated by Congress. So again, cutting out waste. That's another common sense thing. If you work at a job, how about you don't overpour if you're a bartender? How about you don't, throw away good food? How about you don't, sleep on the job? That's wasteful spending of time and resources. And that's, again, a vertically aligned issue. Placing reciprocal tariffs on countries that have tariffs on U.S. goods. Again, it's fairness factor. It's not an ideological thing. I mean, people want to say tariffs. Oh my gosh, tariffs is a tax. Democrats love taxes. So why all of a sudden are you worried about the tariffs? And, you have these establishment Republicans, and I'm not going to knock on Ben Shapiro because he was there tonight and he's supporting Trump and he's come around in a lot of ways. But early on, he was like, no, tariffs are not a thing because tariffs are a tax. And yes, it is a tax, but it is a tool to protect our interests and our farmers and our manufacturers and our job creators and our base workers here in this country. Again, a vertically aligned issue. Freezing, and by the way, I didn't mention this. So the ending bans on offshore drilling in Alaska and elsewhere, 57% are in favor of that. That's the lowest. Second one, the cutting the expenditures, the waste, 59%. Everything else from there is above that 60% threshold that I mentioned before, which is phenomenal. Tariffs, 61%, because it makes sense. People understand the jobs that President Trump was, well, not the jobs so much, but the people who worked at the jobs, the working class jobs that were ignored going back to 2016, and how Bill Clinton told Hillary, say, hey, we should probably go to Wisconsin. You know why? Because we didn't go there, and I'm thinking that we may be in trouble there because Wisconsin, I'm seeing some numbers. Bill's telling Hillary, we should probably consider that. And even, who's that guy's name? Who's the director of bowling for Michael Moore, bowling for Columbine. Michael Moore warned the people in his hometown or his home state of Michigan that this guy Trump knows these people, and these people are looking for a person who's going to listen to them when it comes to jobs and factory workers, blue collar, workers who typically would vote Democrat. When Clinton lost in 2016, for the first time in over, I think, 35 years, going all the way back to Dukakis and before that, Democrats, there were X number of counties. It was dozens of counties in the Midwest, in your Ohio, your Iowas, your Wisconsins, your Michigans, your Pennsylvanias, Ohio, those areas, those typically blue wall areas, which what Hillary Clinton depended on so much to win, actually went to Trump in overwhelming numbers because that part of the population was ignored. And so going back to this point here, when it comes to this, the eliminating all preferences, freezing and reevaluating foreign expenditures and departments to handle them, and the tariffs, all those things hurt those workers. So they are, again, vertically aligned and support Trump. Eliminating all preferences by race in the hiring and awarding of government contracts. Again, common sense. And declaring that was 65%, declaring that there are only two genders, male and female, in all government forms and programs. Common sense, that's 68%. And we're getting more woke as we go up. Banning men who have undergone operations and hormones to become women from girls sports, 69%. Closing the border with added security and policies that discourage illegal crossings. Again, a vertically aligned issue, talking about crime. We want safe schools, safe cities, safe towns, safe everything. And here you have undertaking a full-scale effort to find and eliminate fraud and waste in government expenditures. It's another thing we talked about before, back on the cutting government expenditures below that were allocated by Congress. This is just basic waste and fraud. 76%. Common sense. None of this stuff should be an issue for anybody. And lastly, deporting immigrants who are here illegally and have committed crimes, 81%. So this here, in combination to what we saw at this particular joint session of Congress, if you're just joining us, if you didn't see it, it was the first 20 or 30 minutes was the most juvenile, petty, petulance, just ridiculous display of adults I've ever seen in my life. Most of these guys are from the generation where you're seeing participation trophies. Okay. Yep. You finished in last place. We have 100 people here. Here's your trophy for this. And I've got those in the past. And also I've not gotten them in the past. And I liked getting a trophy, but at the same time, I've realized that I really didn't deserve this. And then there's times I didn't get a trophy. And I said, well, it sucks. I didn't get a trophy. And maybe I should work harder. And I think what we're seeing a generation of kids or of kids who've grown up and gone into our legislative office or have been indoctrinated through our university systems to feel this way of entitlement. And it's on full display. It's on absolute full display. I mean, you see people with signs saying false or this or making signs. And it's absolutely incredible to see. And obviously, whoever is their consulting firm who's telling these senators, and mostly they were House members, that doing that makes any sense whatsoever is just, needs to be fired immediately, because the crux of the whole thing is optics. And Trump is a master at optics. He's a master at marketing. He's a master at presenting himself in the best possible light. He's a master at reading the room and understanding what's happening. He knew who was in the room. And so he would say, these people to my right. And when he saw that it was going to be a hostile crowd, because early on it was screaming and yelling. And that guy, Congressman Green, whoever his name is, with the cane was standing up. They literally had to call the sergeant at arms to kick the guy out of a joint session of Congress. I have never seen that before. I have been in some hostile environments. When I was a young Republican for my, well, actually I was a young Republican, but I was the national committee man for North Carolina. So all North Carolina, there was a national committee man, and then there's a national committee woman. I was voted to be that person. So I represented North Carolina to the state convention in Indiana. I think this was in 2012, I believe. And it was a heated convention in Indiana, a national convention. And it was a split convention, meaning that for the who was going to become the chair of the Young Republican National Federation, or Federation of National Republicans, whatever it was. And there was a coalition of just hostility. And I personally got on the floor and got into a not physical fight so much, but a verbal fight with another dude who was much bigger than me. And I'm glad it didn't come to cuffs, because it would have been probably bad on me. But it was a heated type of thing. And there was always threats from the chair to, okay, the gavel. Okay, we're going to, if you're not quiet, if you don't follow the rules of parliamentary procedures, we're going to have the sergeant of arms kick you out. I've been in JC meetings where I've been a president of JCs, or I've been in other types of environments where I've seen the chair of whatever meeting threaten to call the sergeant of arms to get them out of here. I've led conventions. I've done conventions, and you have to have a sergeant at arms. We had our local sheriff be our sergeant at arms at my local convention, state convention. But the point is, I've never ever seen it actually happen. So at any level, maybe on YouTube, maybe once or twice on YouTube, but I don't recall. And so to see this happen at the highest stage, we're talking about the major leagues here. We're talking about the NFL. We're talking about the highest level of politics. It doesn't get any higher than this. Maybe inauguration, maybe, but in terms of a political, event, a joint session of Congress is probably about the highest thing that you can do as a politician. Maybe a state funeral, maybe a state dinner, but nothing has the eyes on everyone like this. And to see that happen in real time for the first time in my life, it was jaw-dropping. And I was like, wow, let's see what happens, because I had never seen this happen before. And they actually got him in and escorted the guy out. And so getting back to my point is this, very simply, is that these issues we have on the screen, every last one of these came up in that meeting. And not one time did the Democrats stand up, cheer, applaud at all for none of these. These are widely popular, vertically aligned issues that go across a huge swath of people: black, white, young, old, man, woman, black, white, Asian, Hispanic, African descent, you name it. It crosses all of those because there's a human element in all of this stuff, dealing with fairness, dealing with, well, mostly fairness, essentially, and common sense. Okay, yes, there are two genders. I'm sorry, there's a male and a female. And it's not fair for a person to go into another environment, namely a woman's sport, and dominate. There's a racer who won a record. He was a man playing in a race with another female. He won the race by 5 hours. 5 hours. And then there's that one lady who got her head smashed in with a volleyball, hit her head, her neck snapped back, and she had concussions, and then she had brain damage and all of these things, and she can't participate in sports at all. And we did a video on her a couple years ago when it happened. We have videos of it. We actually slow it down. You can see the head go back. It's horrible. It's a nasty, horrible incident. And so when people see that, they say, look, not only is that not fair, it's darn right criminal. And that's why, again, this is why I feel that this particular that this particular speech, I'm not trying to be hyperbole and try to be overly emotional, but the more I think about it, and I think I know history will prove me right or wrong, but I have a pretty good track record on this channel. I haven't had to retract many things, but I feel pretty strongly about this. What I saw there, and it's going to be, I'm going to basically hedge an exception here on one thing. I'll say in a second here, but that speech there is the death essentially of the Democrat Party as we know it. I think when we see in 5 years, 6 years, when let's say Vance wins his second term in 2032, is that right? No, it'll be, yeah, is that right? Yeah. So we're 28, yeah, 32. So when we see that happen, we can look back and say, oh yeah, it was the speech on March 4th that did it. I think because of what we see here on the screen, and not only this, it even goes beyond this. It goes even beyond these vertically aligned positions that people, regardless of who you are, generally agree on. But there's some things that were shown that 99.99999% of people would agree on. I don't care who you are. Like the young gentleman who wanted to be a police officer and he had brain cancer and he became an honorary police officer in different departments. Everyone likes him. And and so President Trump just said, hey, just want to let you know that my chief of Secret Service is going to officially give you, oh man, it's so sweet. I tell you guys, I had to turn the camera off on my live stream because I was tearing up left and right. It was just crazy. So this kid, he gets the credentials. He gets a Secret Service, I guess, badge and ID with his picture on it. And the kid was just so excited. He hugged the guy, and it was just so sweet, and it was spontaneous. And guess what? Not a single Democrat. Well, first of all, I'm going to be fair to Democrats. I'm going to be fair to them because the camera didn't pan on this particular spot. But I'm just assuming that most of them, just like everything else, did not stand for this, did not clap, did not applaud. Maybe some did in their seats, whatever. But for the most part, there was no applause. And I'll go back to my last point because I don't want to forget. The reason why I would say that there's one caveat to this not being that moment that could end the Democrat Party is if it has a low turnout number in terms of viewership. If it gets the type of coverage and viewership, and not to mention what's happening after this, like myself and others who are going to be doing pundit talks and reactions to this, I suspect it's going to be highly, highly viewed. And so that's just maybe just a misnomer, but I want to at least open up that particular possibility of it not being that impactful 8 years from now. But I think it will be, because if the number of people have seen that particular speech, they're gonna fall right in line with that young kid who had brain cancer, who survived. They gave him like 5 months to live, and that happened like several years ago, like 6 years ago. So he's still alive. And then you had, the human interest stories with the angel moms, and you had the human interest stories of, the mother whose husband was killed by whose husband was a police officer and he was murdered. She was there, and then I can't think of some others, but those interest stories were very, very, very powerful. Oh yeah, there was the other one where you had the young gentleman who had a 4.76 average GPA and wanted to get into West Point, military school and military academy. And, he was trying to get in, and Trump said, you know what, your application has already been approved, and seeing in real time his reaction, that was awesome. And what I'm saying is, and Trump he's absolutely brilliant, because he knows what I'm saying. He knows that any position that he takes is going to push the Democrats farther to the left. This is I guess I can do this because this is left on the screen. So yeah, pushing people to the left and carving out that position for himself. And this is exactly what you're seeing right here. That's exactly why the Democrat Party is imploding. This is exactly why the Republican Party is popular like it hasn't been in decades, why President Trump has the highest approval ratings he's had ever, and why all these issues are bringing in people from all demographics, all walks of life, because number one, the issues that they agree with on a vertical level being fair, being moral, and just being a common sense type of issue. Not, again, Keynesian economics versus supply side economics. That's a ideological issue that you can talk about. Okay, how do you bring a product to market, and how do you regulate it? That is a issue that would split you down the middle based on how you feel about whatever. But when you have people like RFK, who was fairly liberal in a lot of different issues, Tulsi Gabbard, and by the way, Democrat, Tulsi Gabbard, and not only him, Democrat, but he's a Kennedy of all things. Tulsi Gabbard, Democrat, and she's very liberal on a lot of things, but she has common sense, so they basically kicked her out. RFK, he had strong opinions on various things dealing with medical, and he got kicked out. They called him a quack, even though prior to him running for election, they thought he was the best thing since French toast. But he didn't fit the mold, the narrative, so they kicked him out. And then you had Kash Patel, who's the FBI director now. He was basically looked at a certain way, investigated. So Tulsi Gabbard, she was put on an enemy watch list. And well, Kash is pretty conservative, so I'll leave him out on here. But Tulsi and RFK Jr., fairly liberal, but they were brought into this big tent because of stuff just like this. Just like this. And I must give you an example that I learned early on, and it helped me with my political career, more or less. And that is this, is that it doesn't matter if you're left or right on an issue. It's, can you come together on one specific task, regardless of what your worldview is, regardless of what your ideology is, whatever, your sensibilities, you can still work on it if you can focus on the actual goal. And here's the example. I say this a lot, or I've said this a lot. You have a tree. You have a person who's a homeowner. He has his own property, his land. Of course, he pays property taxes. So is it really his land? But notwithstanding, you have a guy, he has land. He's got a house. But he has a tree in his yard that's been there for whatever. And it's blocking something in his yard where he can't grow tomatoes, just to say something. So this gentleman, let's call him John. John wants to cut this tree down. John's position is, no, that's actually the wrong position. I'm saying it backwards. Okay, let's do it this way. So John wants to keep the tree in his yard for whatever reason, but the government says they want to tear it down for whatever reason. But he's saying, because this tree is on my property, this is my land, notwithstanding property taxes, that I have the right to keep this tree because it's my right to keep this tree. The liberal tree hugger neighbor also agrees, not with him because he's a conservative dealing with property rights and all that stuff, but he is a tree lover. So he wants to save the tree based on his own worldview and his own sensibilities and his beliefs in nature and all of that. So this ultra liberal and this ultra conservative can work together on the one project of saving that tree. And that's what Trump is doing. He doesn't care where you are on various issues per se, as long as you can help him where he needs help in. And that is why the conservative party, or I wouldn't say conservative party, I would say the MAGA movement, the populist Make America Great Again movement, is so large and getting larger and larger and larger. It's because we're no longer horizontally aligned. We're now vertically aligned on issues that are apolitical, which should be apolitical. And that's the genius in Trump. And, you know, and just, let me see, we got some comments here. Let's go to the comments. Maybe we'll bring some up here. All right. So I've been talking for a while here. SP says, great job. LOL consulting firms. Yeah, I was talking about that. They just do a horrible job. They need to get fired, dude. hostile crowd. They have no answers for common sense and logic, just screaming and fear tactics. Thank you, SP, because and thank you. You actually helped me segue into this because they pretty much no, I know they're just. It's like I mean, they're really just in a quandary, and they're squirming, they're fighting, they're irrelevant, they're angry, all these emotions are coming out, and they just can't deal with it. They don't know how to get out of it. Just today, there was what was it? I was going to put up here. Yeah, so the Democrats unanimously voted to keep biological males in women's sports. This is in Breitbart. And so, for decades, the Democrats would say, women's rights, feminism, and all this. And the positions within them are no longer targeted at the initial benefactor of said issue, that being women. And they don't understand that taking this position 6 weeks after he's inaugurated, several months after the election, after 89%, I believe it was, of counties shifted to the Republican Party, where we're seeing record number voter registration. We're seeing working class young white men, regardless of where they are in the country, under 35, shifting from Democrats by 20+%. And we knew that several months prior to the election, which is why I knew they were going down hard. And when we had our election prediction, we called 312 for Trump, and we got it spot on. You can see the video in the description there. And we talk about this a lot in that. When you see Latino young men under 35, Black young men in under 25 in urban areas, MSAs. Again, 20+ shift to Trump prior to 2020. And that is devastating for them. And there was basically no demographic at all that really went to Kamala at all. And I believe every single state went at least a little bit to Trump. I think even Colorado went by a margin of percentages to Trump. California had a huge swath, which is one of the reasons why we continued on and won the House, because the Democrats' strategy of taking the House back was running the score up in California. They felt that, okay, the rural counties, the Sun Belt, even the Rust Belt, for the reasons I mentioned before about the under 35 white men, unchurched people going for Trump around 80%. They knew that they were going to get that, but they figured California, they could run the numbers up, but it didn't work out that way. It didn't work out that way at all. In fact, the margin in California went way down. The margin in New York went down by a lot. I think it was like 9 or 10 points in New York. He lost by, and New Jersey ended up being like 6 points. And that's like panic time. Panic time. I know they were talking about Texas, how Texas was in single digits in 2020 and 20. I'm not sure it wasn't 2016, but 2020, Texas was closer than it should have been. And they thought, well, Texas could go, it could go blue. And, based on the immigration laws and what the things they were doing, it looked that way. But Texas really, and again, ahead of time, because of the border crisis, shifted people to the right in a way that we hadn't seen in a long time. Arizona did the same thing. He won Arizona by a huge swath, and he should have won New Mexico, but that's old head Democrats, and that's older generation who don't typically change. So, but I think New Mexico and I think New Jersey will definitely go red in 2032. It may go in 2028. Scott Presler, who helped out in Pennsylvania, who was invited to the White House this week. Scott Presler is a hero. He single-handedly, and I will say this. Well, no, he single-handedly won Pennsylvania for us. I'm safe to say that, because the deal with the election was this. And here was the issue, the problem that Trump had. This was the problem he had, the challenge he had. So the Democrat Party had what they call get out the vote campaigns, where they spend a lot of money, they knock on doors, they make phone calls, they do all this traditional stuff, robocalls, the whole nine, ads, and they flood these markets in a traditional canvassing, political 101. I've been to the classes before. I know, I've been a campaign manager. I understand how this works. All that stuff. They did it in the old-fashioned traditional way to get out the vote. And the Democrats had that advantage in a traditional standpoint. Trump did not have that. So how is he going to do that when you have huge states like Pennsylvania, where the margins of voter registration, even though was much more 4 years prior, it's still pretty, within the margin of error of effectiveness if you just have a standard campaign? How are you going to do that? So I think essentially what Scott Presler did and his team, they got out there. They went to gun stores and registered voters there, because they found out that I think around 30% of registered gun owners in Pennsylvania are registered to vote. And what we found is something called low propensity voters, people who don't vote. These are the people I mentioned before: under 35 men, people who are blue collar, people who felt like their vote didn't matter, so why even try? The Bernie bros. One of the reasons why Bernie Sanders was so popular was because those were his voters. They wanted somebody who was outside the political sphere. They understood that there's something called a uniparty, which has existed way back, going back to the Whigs and the Democrat Republicans, going back to Martin Van Buren back in the late 18th century. Those guys. They said, we want someone like that. Bernie was their guy. And when Bernie got kicked out or thrown out, after Bernie got screwed over a couple times, and that just made them mad. And so they said, why vote? Why vote? There's no one else. So here comes Trump, who's not Bernie, but he is an outsider. He's a populist. And no, he's not a leftist wacko like Bernie is, but he still identified them, spoke the same kind of languages that Bernie would say in terms of working class and all of those types of things. And he gathered those votes. So what Scott Presler was able to do was go to the areas where they are, and the Trump campaign, they actually made sure that they went to those areas like Butler, like Allentown, these areas there in the rural areas of Pennsylvania. And this is the same model all the way through Wisconsin, all the way through Michigan. It's the same model. But I'm talking about Scott Presler here because that was something that he was able to do. And of course, Trump was able to get onto these podcasts that were earmarked to people like that. Of course, Joe Rogan, of course, was really helpful. And that's what helped get the vote out. It was the enthusiasm from someone who has not only done it before, but is still an outsider, who has been indicted dozens of times, who has been shot at once, almost shot at twice. Actually, he was shot. Let's just be clear. And almost shot at the second time. And, they tried to get him for bankruptcy, him overvaluing his house. It's all a bunch of crap. We all know it was crap. We all know that it was weaponization, lawfare at the worst. And all that stuff just made him more and more popular and more endearing to that base of people who felt the exact same way, whether they be a working person who got his job taken from someone because it was shipped overseas, a person who lost his job because an illegal alien came in, or let's say I know someone who was hurt or affected by illegal immigration, or I can't go to my son's basketball tournament because the gymnasium at the YMCA is being occupied by illegals. My daughter got trounced in a track meet because a man came in and did that. Or let's say, you know, I'm forced to put something in my body that I don't want to put, or lose my job. Those are the kind of things that endeared people to Trump. And that's one thing that I hope the Democrats do not get. I hope they do not get this. I hope they are continually obtuse in their language, in their vibrato, and their stupidity. And the optics of this is what's going to destroy them. It's going to absolutely destroy them. How do you defend any of this if you're on the other side? Oh yeah, who are the 19% of people that say deporting immigrants who are illegally here and have committed crimes? Who are the 19% of people that feel that way? That is your ultra wacko left. And I said this for years. I'm on record for saying this. The fact is that the left controls anywhere from 20 to 25 to 30% tops of any issue in this particular country. If you see any issue of that's totally wacko to the most wackiness, it's going to be around 30% of people that are going to always say, I'm for that. Now, this 19%, that's good, nice low number, but still, who are you? So that's 2 out of 10. So if you go in the street, you go to the shopping store, and there's 100 people in the store. 19 of them feel that deporting immigrants who are here illegally and have committed crimes is a problem. It's hard to believe. And that's why the Democrat Party is imploding. So woke policies do this. They do this. Well, I'll get to that in a second. Let's go through some more things here. SP said, can they applaud anything? No. I'm telling you, dude, I've been around a long time. Let me tell you how it's supposed to go down. I'm from DC. I grew up right outside the Beltway. I worked in various departments in the federal government. I worked at Smithsonian as an intern. I worked at GAO, General Accounting Office, as an intern. I worked at BLS as an employee. I worked at Smithsonian, as I said already. Where else? Federal Trade Commission, HUD. Where else? But anyway, I'm very understanding of that. I know where I was when Reagan got shot. I know, and actually, that's not true. I don't know exactly what was happening when I found out it happened. I was still fairly young then, but it was everywhere. And we saw all the speeches because back then you only had like 5 channels to choose from. So when there was a joint session of Congress, usually it's it's going to be a State of the Union address. You're going to watch it. And here's what typically happens. Okay. The room split typically. Democrats on one side, Republicans on the other. If I'm the Republican president, I'll say, hey guys, you know what? We're going to go for supply side economics. I'm going to put forth a measure so we deal with supply side economics, supply and demand. And the whole side of my people will rise up. People on this side won't rise up. But then I'll say, in the crowd here, we have a gentleman who's a firefighter. He got burned and he had improper equipment. So I'm signing a legislation that's going to make sure that our firefighters have sound gear. Everybody stands up. That's how it works. That's how it's worked for years. But Trump, and this is why I know the Democrat Party is imploding, because when you can't stand up on basic morality issues like that, or practical issues like that, or pragmatic issues like that, or common sense issues like that, or anything of that nature that's a vertically aligned topic, you are totally screwed. And we saw the Democrat Party, we didn't see this, but I do a lot of history. I read a lot. during the antebellum period where the slave swamp was going on and Lincoln was trying to upend that, you had Whigs as a party working with the Democrats to basically say, hey, you want to deal with this issue of slavery? How about we don't? How about I just give you a postmaster generalship position, or I give you a position at a dock so you can skim off the top when the tariffs are applied to these imports coming to your shipping area. How about I do that for you? Instead of dealing with this, you watch me, I'll watch you. You scratch my back, I'll scratch your back. This went on all the way back to Martin Van Buren. I mentioned this yesterday. He created the Democrat Party. Martin Van Buren created the Democrat Party for the sole purpose of being in power. That whole Tammany Hill party up in New York, same thing. It was a mob. It was a orchestrated party that was designed by Martin Van Buren. They called this guy the magician, or that's what they called him, because he was such a political savvy kind of guy. He was the vice president under Andrew Jackson. Andrew Jackson was a common person. He was the first president to come away from the East Coast of the country. He was from Tennessee, I believe, or somewhere in the Midwest. I know he had his house in Tennessee, and I forget the name of it right now. It'll come to me. The Hermitage, I believe. I've been there. But anyway, he was a wildly interesting man. Very, very brash. I mean, he shot people. He had bullets in him from doing duels. He was an Indian hunter. He got slashed in the face as a kid by a British officer because he refused to shine the British officer's boots. And so, but he had a manifest destiny type approach, which actually I believe came from Quincy Adams. He wrote that. He was Secretary of State under Monroe, which basically James Monroe was called the Monroe Doctrine, but it was written by John Quincy Adams. But nevertheless, that mindset was, we're going to have a country from east to west, and we're going to dominate it. We're going to impose our will on the world. If you are in our hemisphere, stay out. This is our area, from Greenland all the way down to the tip of South America. This is our hemisphere. Stay out. That was the mindset. It was a braggadocio mindset. James Polk. So you know what? I'm going to take Texas, and he was a Democrat. He worked for 4 years and died shortly after because he worked so hard. But James Polk took Texas and said he basically created a war just to take Texas, essentially. It's a little bit more than that, but I mean, Santa Ana in Mexico was doing some bad things to settlements in Texas, and the Texans wanted their own rights and so forth. So there was some grounds for war, but it really wasn't something that was really constitutional. Nevertheless, my point I'm trying to make is James Polk and Martin Van Buren were people who idolized Andrew Jackson. So when Jackson finished his 2 terms, Martin Van Buren, who's the vice president, became president. Only the second president to actually have that happen, an acting vice president become president. The other one was H.W. Bush under Reagan. He decided, okay, if you're going to carry on this Jacksonian Jacksonian type of deal, we can't go with a person on the East Coast. We can't go with someone like that. We have to go with someone who's in a party that's going to protect them. And so he created the Democrat Party for the sole purpose of having a buddy system to prevent slavery from being repealed, because Andrew Jackson almost had to deal with the Civil War during his administration. And so the point I'm trying to get here is simply that's where the swamp started to grow, and it rolled into Lincoln, as I was mentioning earlier, about the antebellum period here. And that point in time is when we started to see the breakup of all civility. And here's what I want to get back to my point about the Democrat Party being nearly destroyed. So all of that crescendoed to the Civil War with the various things that were happening, the Dred Scott case, Harry Beecher Stowe's Uncle Tom's Cabin. You had the Missouri Compromise. You had the Kansas-Nebraska Act. You had the fugitive slave law. All these things were happening. It was just pissing off everybody, if whether you be in the South or the North, whatever. And the presidents that led up to that, like your Pierces, your Buchanans, your Zachary Taylors, those guys didn't do anything. They were just sympathizers for the South, but loyal to the North, sort of thing. And it was just a shell game. Nothing was getting done. And Lincoln said, "Darn it, let's just it's on." Should I go into Charleston, South Carolina, and should I say, "Okay, guys, can I resupply here, guys?" Or because what was happening was this fort in Fort Sumter in Charleston, South Carolina, was a federal fort, and Lincoln was like, "Look, okay, South Carolina seceded in 1861, so if you're going to do that, let us have our federal forts back." But the Confederates said, "No, that's our fort." So it's a issue of sovereignty. And so if Lincoln were to go in there and take it back by force, then he would be the aggressor. So he decided, you know what? How about I just send medical supplies and food to resupply them? And the South took that as a problem, and they ended up bombing it, and then off we go. But the point I'm making is that the Democrat Party fell apart during that period. When slavery ended, if you look at the end of slavery, slavery, which is 1865, which I believe where the 13th Amendment was passed, ratified. But anyway, Civil War ended in 64. Is that right? Or 65? 65, I believe. April, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm losing it. So, but the point is that by that happening, the Democrat Party imploded. And then during Reconstruction, and because Andrew Johnson was the vice president who came in after Lincoln was assassinated, he was a sympathizer of the South, and he was obstructing. And the Republicans set him up, said, "Hey, if you do this, if you fire this guy, we're going to impeach you." He survived by 1 vote. And but from that point on, the Democrats couldn't do anything. If you look at just the leadership in the House and Senate, they had nothing. The only person that came out of that period was Grover Cleveland, who was elected twice. And he's another story. I won't get into that. But what I'm saying is, and this is my whole point of going through all that, is to say this. I'm seeing the exact same thing right now. Well, I'm not seeing the same. I wasn't alive. But I'm seeing what I perceive to be the same thing of the destruction of the Democrat Party back in the antebellum period. Now, they came back because the Republicans became a swamp party. They got in bed with the trusts. They got in bed with the railroad systems, and in some ways, no fault of their own, because there were some bad business practices and some bad laws in the books about corporations. So you had to have a corporation. If you had a corporation, you only were tied to a certain area. That had to be repealed. And so you have a broader thing there, which meant that you could have competition, but then you have competition across state lines. Now you have railroads that are so long and so big that you can't maintain them as a company. You have to have managers, and those managers became their own sort of bureaucracy, and they didn't want to innovate because they were beholden to the stockholders who owned the railroad. So things were going along a certain way, and things were being bought off and paid for. So going back, because the Republicans were in power, there was a lot of corruption going on, a lot of things with, J.P. Morgan, these big conglomerate, these big oil barons and railroad barons like Vanderbilt and Carnegie, oil baron, all these guys. And so I see why I see why the Republicans kind of went shifty and went into the Coolidge era and became, a country club style party, but it was still tied in with corruption. And that let the Democrats back in. And then when FDR came in, he just knocked the door down and created so many different things where they became the power base that they are now. But had we done the right thing, if the Republican Party had stayed on principle, we could have kept the Democrat Party down, and there would have been another party that we've been dealing with, not the Democrat Party. And so I think right now, Trump has an opportunity now to, and I think he will, because he's the kind of guy who, when he beats you, he does not let you up. We've seen victories before in the past with Reagan, more recently, the Tea Party. We see stuff with the Tea Party comes to mind a lot. I see here in North Carolina, we had something where we were trying to go against the the gas tax here in North Carolina. It was a big campaign, and we won that campaign. But then, because what was happening was here in North Carolina, the gas prices were so high because there's a tax on the gas, but there should have been money coming from the Highway Trust Fund, which had been totally depleted, raided. This is pre-Doge. So since there was no money in the Highway Trust Fund to support roads and highways and bridges, whatever, they imposed a gas tax. So part of the bill was to come in and remove that, replenish the trust fund, and cap it out with a promise to balance it out. We won that, but then of course that went to crap because more people came in who were corrupt, and that whole bill pretty much got washed away. We don't talk about it anymore as much. And so that's the kind of things I'm talking about. If Trump gets a victory, I think he's going to really stand by it and put his foot on the necks and keep it there because he's that kind of guy. I don't know if you guys follow basketball at all, but growing up, I was a big hater of Duke basketball. I didn't like Duke basketball. Now I think they're fine. They're great. They're fine. I don't care because sports now is just dumb. It's just bread and circuses. But back when I cared about sports, I couldn't stand Duke. I was a North Carolina. I was a Maryland Terrapins guy. I was a Georgetown Hoya kind of guy. I didn't like Duke, but you had to respect them because to beat them, you had to beat them down. I remember Maryland, the year before they won the national championship in 2001, in the Final Four, I believe, they had Duke down by a lot, and they came back and beat them. And my point is that you have to take people like a Duke or a New England Patriots. You got to beat them. You can't let them stay close. If they stay close, they're going to come back and they're going to beat you. If you keep the Democrat Party close, they're going to come back and I don't know how they're going to do it now because the issues are ridiculous. If you look here on the screen here, I don't know how they're going to do it, but they'll find a way to lie, manipulate, cheat, steal, to do what they have to do to get power back. But I don't see them getting power back for the next 20 years, especially after tonight. I just don't. I don't see the Republicans dropping the ball that badly. If they do, we deserve everything we get. If we lose this moment right now, we deserve everything we get. Because everything that Trump does, no matter what it is, because let me bring it back on the screen here. That's why I had it up here the whole time. Whatever Trump does, it's going to be in that 57 percentile at the worst, 81 percentile at the best. Maybe there's probably more issues that are even higher than that haven't been talked about. But everything he does is going to be popular. That's what it's called, being a populist. So, yeah, I'm super excited about this whole thing. I'm going to go through some more of this here. SP, thank you for chiming in here. He says here, they're praying for a crisis. Exactly. Ridiculous. And back in the day when we saw, the split Congresses, whatever, a split session, they would look at people who weren't clapping for the stuff that they should be clapping for. For instance, like a black Democrat not clapping for a black conservative who happened to overcome some kind of obstacle. I'm not clapping for him because he's a Republican. I'm not, he voted for Bush. And so they would find those kind of people and show them and highlight them and make a big deal out of it. I know Rush Limbaugh would do that. He'd say, yeah, look at this. Look at this. They didn't clap here. They didn't clap there. But here, the entire Democrat Party didn't stand for again, if you're going to talk about economics, Keynesian versus supply side, fine. I get it. That's not something you want to do. But when you are talking about 89% of the counties in America that have shifted to the right, you're all over the country as a House member. You're not clapping is basically crapping on your delegation, no matter who they are. You look at Chicago. Look at the uproar that they had with the illegals coming in and taking the resources of the people in the city of Chicago. The black people who were Democrat, who live in Chicago, were at the city council, in the mayor's face, talking about, we're coming for you. We're going to bring Trump in here if we have to. We have videos on that. These are people who would vote Democrat 90% of the time. Not anymore. And that's what's happening. This is why the Democrat Party is in serious trouble. And what's even worse, and I meant to say this earlier here, is that there's no way out for them because there's still a high level of ideologues like these Democrats today who voted unanimously to vote to keep biological males in women's sports. They haven't learned the lesson yet. So let's say, okay, let's just take one of these issues. Let's take a conservative one. Let's take the one here at the bottom here. This is all right, this is a good one here. Let's take this 57%. This one is ending bans on offshore drilling in Alaska and elsewhere. Now, again, that really is, you can tell by the numbers, that is more of an ideological issue in a lot of ways. But some people could say, well, it's a fair issue because we need to have, or no, sorry, it's a security issue because we want to have security in our country. People who understand that oil, having it in our own country works better for us because we don't have to depend on other countries. We've been saying that since the 70s, pretty much. In the oil embargo with Jimmy Carter, those long lines. Yeah. So take this one here, for example. So 57% feel that way. So if my district feels that the 57%, let's say, are on, let's say they okay, well, let's just say no, it's across all boards, regardless of where you are. So let's say I'm a congressman from Pango in Iowa. Okay, I'm at the joint session. I hate Trump. I can't stand them, and I'm not going to clap for anything. But he mentions this in his speech. I got to think in my head, okay, 43% of this, 57% of my constituents here are for this issue just across the board. So maybe I should clap a little bit. Maybe I should hold up a sign saying you suck or, you're wrong or whatever. Maybe I shouldn't do that because chances are my district, just like 89% of the counties in this country shifted right. I may be impacted when it comes to the midterms, and I don't have time to go through it now, but the numbers for the midterms are looking very, very bleak for the Democrats right now. I haven't really done a lot of analysis on it yet, but it just looks like it's going to be something where we're going to keep the Senate at about a 54, maybe 55 to 45 type deal there, maybe increase our lead there in the Senate. And as far as the House, in terms of the generic polling, it looks like I think there's about 16, 18, depending on who you look at, undecided or so-called swing seats there. And with our majority of about, I think we're at 11 to whatever, we only need to carry about 40% of those 18 or 16 seats to maintain our majority. So it looks good there as well, especially when you consider the polling that deals with, regardless of who you're going to vote for. Those pollings is where I'm looking for. I can't remember, but all right, let's just go through these comments. There are a bunch of them here. I'm going to get to as many as I can. All right, protect Title IX and women. Yes, again, another basic issue. Let's go here. Gwendolyn Young says the demon rat. Sorry. Showed the whole world how evil. Yeah, showed the whole world how evil they are. I 100% agree. I mean, I'm glad it's not just me, but the optics were absolutely horrible. Couldn't even honor Americans who suffered, or the young kid, or the young man that was accepted in the military school. 100%. Give me a break. And you even saw that when Trump was leaving, another person came to Trump and said, hey, yeah, they didn't even do something or stand for this. And Trump said, can you believe it? I can't believe it. I got to go listen to it again, but I'm not sure what the issue was. But we know for a fact that they didn't stand for anything. It was absolutely appalling. And they looked like petulant little kids. It was really disgusting. It was horrible. It was an embarrassment. And look, I get the whole thing. I get Trump is divisive, but he's not divisive. He's effective. And he's in your face if you're adversarial to him. He's not going to back down from you. And a lot of it is just how he negotiates and how he deals with people. Look, people today who are Democrats love LBJ. But if LBJ were alive today in the body of Trump, they would throw him out of D.C. because LBJ walked around nude. He cussed people out. He was a racist. He he would get in people's faces and give them what they called the Lyndon treatment. He would stand over them. He was a tall guy. He would stand over them, yell at them. He would get them to vote his way or do his or whatever it is, because he was just a tough, mean SOB. That's what he was. He was very braggadocio. That was his leadership style. And Andrew Jackson was probably 10 times worse. We don't know, but he was something else. And people like Truman, who were basically quiet but still stern. Teddy Roosevelt was very exciting and bully, we're gonna do this, whatever. He was very exciting and strong. Let me see, Polk. I don't know his character that much. I think he was pretty quiet. Coolidge was very, very quiet, but still a sound leader. Reagan, we know about him. So every leader has their own style. Trump has his own style, and it's a style that is designed for this era. I don't think maybe Ronald Reagan could do it because he had the Hollywood background. He had the charisma. He was self-deprecating. He would disarm you. So Reagan probably could do it because he was a little bit ahead of his time, but I don't think Bush could. I don't think Obama could if he was on the other side. If Obama was Trump, I don't think he had the personal skills to handle the type of adversity that Trump handles in the type of environment with social media and all the things that are going on now. Trump was meant for this moment. God raised him up to all the things he went through military school, through his brother being killed, through his father getting him an opportunity to help him in Brooklyn, to eventually leave his dad and go build in Manhattan, to get that Romans skating rink done, to eventually open up casinos, and then to go bankrupt because at the time he lost his executive staff or crew or partners who were in charge of his New Jersey operation. I think it was called the Taj Mahal, I believe. They died in a helicopter crash right around the early 90s. And at that point in time, he lost almost everything. He said, what can I do? I still have my name. I still have Trump, because I used it in the 80s to do the things I did. And he put his name on things. Even though he didn't own it, he licensed his name on different things. And he scraped his way back. That got him a position on The Apprentice. And the rest is history. Only Trump, God raised him for that purpose. And so when he's right here, right now, at that particular meeting, and people are yelling at him and screaming at him, he was in full control. Now, I know Speaker Johnson had to end it, had to call the order, get the gavel going, threaten and execute the sergeant at arms to actually evict that congressman. Trump didn't have to have that. I think Trump could have still got through that because he's that kind of guy. He dealt with way worse in Manhattan. And so his personality style is for this time. And it's the only kind of personality style that we can have to take on the type of role that he needs to take on dealing with this deep state or the swamp. As it has grown from Lincoln, it was called the slave swamp. From Grover Cleveland, it was called the patronage swamp or the spoil swamp. From there, you go into Teddy Roosevelt. It's the trust swamp, the monopolies. And then from Teddy Roosevelt, you go into a mid time there with World War II kicking in, FDR and whatever. And then you come out of that, Eisenhower, and he mentions the military industrial complex. You have JFK. He's dealing with the CIA swamp. And then you have, after that, Reagan dealing with the bureaucracy swamp. And then now dealing with Trump, the deep state. And what I said this before, Trump is dealing with all of those minus maybe the slave swamp in one apparatus all in of itself. It's grown so big all these years, and they are squirming, and they're incensed, and they just can't stand the fact that he's going to take their power from them, and he's taking the money from them. He's going into their deep pockets and seeing things through AI, which was never thought that they could figure out 30 or 40 years ago. Oh yeah, we'll hide this in this subcommittee here. We'll hide this here in this discretionary fund here, and we'll do this here. We'll send money over here to this country here. It'll come back this way. Money laundering. but they didn't anticipate something called AI, and with the ability to interrogate hundreds and hundreds of terabytes worth of data in fractions of seconds, and huge algorithms that do these processings that can learn as it goes and figure stuff out and find stuff deep within and then expose this stuff. It must be absolutely terrifying. And then you have this going across all of his cabinet, most of his cabinet, which all have an axe to grind. RFK Jr. has an axe to grind. Tulsi Gabbard has an axe to grind. Kash Patel has an axe to grind. All of them have an axe to grind, which means they're going to be loyal because they got an axe to grind, but they're also going to be effective because they're a really, really good cabinet, and they're young, a lot of them. So yeah, so I'm really super duper excited. So where's he here? So okay, they'll need a generation or two to come back from this speech. Thank you, SP. I thought that I was going out on a limb there saying that. I'm so glad you agree with me. I think you're right. I mean, I think you're saying what I'm saying. And this administration's positions and policies, they're disconnected from reality, 100%, psychotic, and only desperate for their media. I'm going to have Nicole Kaufman come in, if she can do it, and have her come in. We're just talking about this one speech, because, and your statement right here, if I can remember, I will use this statement in our live stream or whatever we decide to do. Nicole is a licensed clinical therapist. She works with high achieving people who are, successful, wealthy, but they're having issues. And she helps people like that. But she's also a conservative. And she's had a show on our channel for several years called The Right Therapist. And we have her come in on various things, talking about these types of things. But anytime I see anything dealing with psychotic or let's say gaslighting, or let's say psychology terms, I think of her. So I would like to have her come in here and talk about this, because I want to get some reinforcement there as well. Gwendolyn Young says, did you know that some left? Yes. And some had a sign on the back of their shirt saying resist, I believe. So did you notice that some left before President Trump's speech had finished? They created their own demise, and lots of shorts or in their favor. Yeah, I agree right there, 100%. SP said, I saw that. I'm not sure what you were referring to. That was about an hour ago. Not in their favor. SP says, LOL, their whole party looks ancient. Yeah, and they just look ridiculous. Did you guys see the speech that Booker and I think it was not Mitch. There was 3 people who had a speech. It was exactly the same thing. I think it was Pocahontas, and I think it was definitely Booker. And the other guy, I can't remember his name right now. But they did a video of pretty much the exact same length. Let's see if I can find it. Let me see if I can pull it up. Let's do that. Let's go here. Let's go. Can y'all see that? No, you can't. Okay. Here it is. Take a look at this.
When I win, I will immediately bring prices down starting on day one.
That ain't true. That's what you just heard. Since day one of Donald Trump's presidency, prices are not down. They're up. Inflation is getting worse. Not better. The prices of groceries, gas, housing, eggs, of essentials. It's not getting better. It's getting worse. Meanwhile, Donald Trump has done nothing to lower prices. Instead, he's pardoned violent who savagely beat police officers.
He says, parting violent criminals. She's talking about J6, and they're showing that people don't care about J6, but they know what it was. And the more stuff that comes out about it, we know what it was. It is what it is. You hate the cops. For years, defund the police. Cops are bad. This and this and that. Cops. Now all of a sudden you care about cops? It's just, I mean, they think we are stupid, and it's just so ridiculous. And I haven't even watched this whole thing. I edited some of it to get down to a minute so I could put it on Blue Sky. So I haven't really watched the whole thing, but let's keep going.
On January 6th, he's letting Elon Musk take a chainsaw to vital government programs, and then, even worse, giving him access to Americans' most sensitive data, Social Security numbers, tax returns, healthcare returns. He's fired thousands of essential workers, people who help our veterans get their benefits, people fighting Ebola in Africa so it doesn't come here. He's frozen funding.
The Ebola thing, they stopped that. That's true. They did stop that, but they found the mistake and they corrected it. See, these people can't be trusted. And I can go on and decompose all of this. That's what I used to do back in the day, was decompose these kind of things and do a spin on it. However, it just doesn't make any sense what they're saying, because they're hypocritical on themselves, because they know good and well they don't care about the cops. They don't.
Vital programs that so many American families need: cancer research, education funds, payments to family farmers, and so much worse. Why are they doing this? Trump, Musk, Doge are taking these vital services away from you for one reason only: so they can give tax breaks to their billionaires club. Their plan is awful. Simply awful. Billionaires win, families lose.
Here's the thing. They mentioned billionaires, but here's the ironic part. The Democrat Party is now the party of billionaires. They are the party of billionaires. They're the party of the rich oligarch elite. They're the ones in Hollywood. They're the ones in big pharma. They're the ones in big ag. They're the ones in big government. They're the ones that are doing these things with international companies, with the World Health Organization and all that stuff. They're the ones in bed with all of these organizations. They are the ones who are the big rich elite. They're the ones who lost those over 100 counties that had gone Democrat for 35 years prior to 2016, that Trump won to get him over the top to win the election in 2016. They lost those people. Bill Clinton warned you. Michael Moore warned you. So yeah, you can continue this narrative. It's not going to fly, because people now are no longer trusting the legacy media. The media it has the lowest approval in terms of trust in years. People are no longer going to the MSNBCs, the CNNs, the ABCs, NBCs, any of the legacy media, any of the shill media. They no longer are going to these organizations because they just don't trust them. How many times are they going to have to be debunked on various issues about laptops and Russia for them to finally realize that they can't be trusted? Everything they do, it can't be trusted. For 8 years, they woke up and said, this is the day we're going to get Trump. And it never happened. Came close, but never happened. And Trump is stronger than he's ever been. And so, yeah, so this is not, it's not going to work. All this does show is the opposite. It shows that this is a political class of consultants who had a script and told these guys to do it. And it wasn't just these three. It was several more. I think Charlie Kirk had another one where he basically, so I can find that one. Do a quick search on that. I think he posted on, I know he posted on X, but if I can find it on because when he posted, it had like, I don't know, 15 or so. It was the speech here. Yeah, they have. But anyway, the one he posted had many people, and it was just, I mean, it was absolutely. It doesn't matter. I can't find it. It's too far down. Oh yeah, and he did that. Trump did that executive order. He didn't sign it, but he did the executive order when he named that that reserve area for that woman's daughter. That was very touching. Very good. Let me see. Women all over the Republican Party. Yes, young women too. The auto industry coming back to the USA, and the Democrats can't even now talk to those unions. Yeah, that's another thing. Union workers are really, again, the blue collars and so forth. The Teamsters came over, essentially pretty much voted for Trump. Let me get something to drink here, guys. I'm a little bit. Yeah, so that was really big. What was I going to say there as well? I can't remember. Yeah. I think you're not SP. You are not wrong. Optimistically, I think California could be as early as 2032. If they keep losing population in California, I'm not going to go on a limb and say 2028. I think that's too soon, but by 2032 for sure, that's probably the time we can get California. Especially if Trump does a good job. Again, these numbers here really don't lie. They don't lie, and that's what people feel. And the margins there are astronomical. And these consultants all need to be fired. But here's the thing: I don't know if they can come out of this, because I think I got off a tangent here. Let me finish my thought while I was trying to say this. Is that so? This issue here I mentioned about Alaska, whatever, I mentioned that before. I didn't finish my thought. I know that 43% of my constituents are opposed to this, so maybe I should be more gracious. Maybe I should clap a little more. Maybe I should stand. Maybe I should get some optics to my people back home to say I understand what you're talking about, especially on this issue here. And but the problem is, of that 43% of people who are opposed to that, because this is pretty much a moderate, this is a good ideological leaning type issue. Okay. I mean, this isn't federal funding of school lunches. This is not something like that. This is something similar to that, but not quite as ideological. However, of that 43%, I would say this is about 20% of those people who are insanely woke, who will never vote for that. And they want something way more radical. Not only do they want to end banning of offshore drilling, they want to, let's say, put regulation on water in the Pacific Ocean because of whatever reason. They want to tax water. And so those people here are going to be opposed to the ones who are in the party who are opposed to it, but are not that opposed to it. And so what I'm saying is that what wokeness does, here's the key. What wokeness does is it unites the right. It brings the right together. It brings conservatives together. It brings common sense together, which is why I said 81% up there. It brings us together, but it divides the left, because you can never be woke enough. You can always be more woke. And eventually it's a law of diminishing returns, because eventually you're going to look around and you're by yourself because you're the only one that's as woke as you are, or you're not as woke as everyone else. They've left you. Lord of the Flies, that kind of thing. And so that's why I agree with you here, where you say, I don't see them getting out of this. I just don't. SP says, he said that. So another thing Trump did was he actually pointed them out. He called Elizabeth Warren to her face Pocahontas, because they kept clapping when he's talking about funding Ukraine. And then he said, what, you want to go another 5 years war? And then the clapping stopped, because they realized what they're clapping for. They're clapping for more war. These people are so obtuse and so dense and so stupid. It's just mind-boggling. It's a total and utter destruction. It's a total and utter destruction, and we're seeing it again in real time. SP says, yes, power is all they care about. Dems want the power. I believe Republicans want to share the power with us as an economy, security, prosperity, equality, and uniquely. And I think some Republicans are still wishy. And I think after this midterm, hopefully we can primary some of the ones that are wishy-washy and get a stronger line of Republicans. But I think a lot of these Republicans, even though they may be a little rhino-y, they are just people who lick their fingers and stick it in the air and see which way the wind blows, and then they go with that. And a lot of people are like that, who basically they want a focus group before they can make any kind of decision. They're not really principled. So, and though they will vote for us if Trump is popular. And as long as Trump is popular, we have no worries. And as long as Trump does what he says he's going to do, he will be popular, simply because of what we're seeing here on the screen. Man and a half here says, let me see. When was this done? This was 12:32. Okay, so this is only 12 minutes ago. Okay, this is fairly recent. Britt Hume praised Trump's speech tonight as one of the most effective that he's ever heard. And he's not exactly a Trump fan. Also said that them sitting on the hands was very, very bad look. And trust me, I'm telling you guys, I've been doing this a long time. And I'm telling you, there's a reason why going back in the Reagan era, that's what I remember a little bit. I really remember the H.W. Bush era more. But when those joint session of speeches were happening, that's what you did. Everyone would stand for the president on both sides if it was a vertically aligned position like this, like these issues here. All these would have been something that if they all, not all stand for. I mean, again, I would definitely say the first. Yeah, I'm not going to say tariffs. Because, yeah, I would say from the freezing and reevaluating all foreign ad expenditures on up would have been clapped by everybody unanimously across the board. Go look at Bill Clinton's speeches. Go look at Obama's speeches. We talked about we're going to shrink government. We're going to get rid of the waste. Bill Clinton said the same thing. Joe Biden was talking about, gun ownership back in the day. The Democrat Party was very, very, well, not very conservative. They were, by comparison, very conservative where they are today. And I recommend everybody do this. Go find The West Wing. It's about 8 seasons long. It's a show that came out in the 2000s. It's got Rob Lowe. It's got Charlie Sheen. It's got a really good cast. I've been binge watching this for the past month or so because I just like politics in general. I didn't watch it because at the time it really came on, I was really involved heavily in the Republican Party. I was a chairman. I was doing all kinds of things. And it was Democrat. I didn't want to have to deal with Democratic issues on TV and my entertainment. But if you go back and look at it right now and watch this show, you will see the Democrat Party. And this is what the Democrats look at themselves as this Camelot utopian type president who's from New England. He's an economics major. He's won a Nobel Prize for economics. He's super smart, can think on his feet, very charismatic. He's strong when he wants to be. He's liberal when he needs to be. He's compassionate. He's just this perfect president. That's what they want. They want Martin Sheen. They want this guy. I think his name is Bartlett, I believe. President Bartlett is his name. And you see his staff, his press secretary. You see his deputy counsel, Rob Lowe, speechwriter. You see his chief of staff. You see his deputy chief of staff, Toby. You see these guys, and they're all brilliant. They're great at what they do. It's great entertainment. You like the characters. They're fantastic. The things they say are moderate. If the Democrats acted like this today, they would have thrown them the hell out of the party. These are the people who were like JFK Jr., Tulsi Gabbard, Tucker Carlson, who early on, well, I'll leave him out, but he's still liberal in some areas of economics and world affairs and whatever, but we'll leave him aside. Joe Rogan in particular, those guys, and just all of that would have been kicked out of the party on both feet. That's how I know the party's done. And there's no way out of it for them. It's going to take a generation to get rid of him. They can bring in Stephen A. Smith, who is actually not a bad idea to propped up. But here's the problem. No matter how good Stephen A. Smith could be, no matter how good The Rock, Dwayne Johnson could be, great personalities who can talk well, maybe can have good policy. It doesn't matter because there's still going to be a section of their party who are just totally whacked out. You're going to lose 20% off the top, no matter what you do. So no matter what you do, if you're going to be run for Democrat, if you're going to take issues that are basically common sense, you can take 20 to 30% off the top. So you need to win an issue by about 80% to bring it down to about 30%. To bring it down to about 50% just to have a shot at winning that issue. They're done. They have to jettison that left wing of their party, but they can't. And they're not going to be able to. So they're done. So for the next, I don't see any way out of it at all. And if you can see a way out of it for them, let me know. Now, we shouldn't get complacent. We don't know what the world's coming up with. There could be some big tragedy that happens that unites the country and wokeness dies in a certain way, or Something could happen in the future, but at the way things are now, and the trajectory that that things are going now, in a realistic projection, I just don't see any way possible that they can get out of this. Just there's just no way. And with the kind of leader that Trump is, I don't see him letting up at all. Even if Trump would do something stupid or have like a bad week last week where the Pam Bondi thing kind of blew up in their face a little bit. That was their first kind of like not good moment. Even with that, there's so many other things that we care about other than the Epstein list. Now we're gonna be pissed off on that. We may be pissed off on maybe raising the cap on the debt spending. There may be issues we care about. Like personally, I didn't care about the omnibus bill that happened in his first term. That was one thing I liked that he did, but I understood why he did it. I didn't like the bump stock that he did, even though the NRA kind of said it's okay to do it. But I get it in some ways. So you're not gonna like everything that someone does, but there's gonna be enough of it that's gonna propel him. And I think very strongly that JD Vance is ready for prime time. And when I saw Hillbilly Elegy a few weeks ago, I was convinced that this guy is the right guy for the job. This guy is tough as nails. He will beat you down. He is a man's man. And best yet, he can articulate all of the MAGA policies in a way, in a depth, in a breadth, in a way that Trump can't do. You saw that with Zelensky and J.D. Vance in the Oval Office. J.D. Vance was articulating the policy at a wonky level and saying, okay, this, and this, where Trump was basically doing it from a brokerage standpoint, from a moderator standpoint, from just like a chair of a committee type of standpoint, where J.D. Vance is actually the subcommittee who had did all the work and research, and now he's coming out of the committee meeting to let everyone know what's going on. And Trump is being the person who's facilitating this whole meeting. That's how I see it. But after 4 years of Trump, and this is what I see Trump doing his thing, having a fantastic Olympics, having a fantastic 250-year anniversary. I see that happening. I see all these things happening. I see the market doing very well. I see patriotism going crazy. I see money coming to our coffers like crazy. I see a potentially balanced budget in 3 years or less, especially if you get that gold card thing implemented fully. That's incredible. If you think about it, if you get 1,000 people or 2,000 people who buy this green card, I'm sorry, not 2,000, 2 million people buy this green card, do the math, do 2 million times 5 million. You pay the debt down tremendously. And it is a fantastic possibility in just that program alone. So with all that happening, I see him setting it up perfectly for, and this is where I'm going to leave it, guys. I'm going to leave it right here because I've been gone for a long time. I see this here where J.D. Vance, I'm not going to say it right now, it's really early, but he could be the third sitting vice president to win the presidency coming off of a president. H.W. Bush did it against Reagan, and Martin Van Buren did it as the 8th president, as the vice president for the 7th president, Andrew Jackson. And what I find interesting is, look at those 3 presidents. They were all transformative. Andrew Jackson, some don't like him. I particularly like him. I think he was a great president. But he was, the more I read about him, it's the guy was just, he was probably, of all the presidents we've had, he was probably, the most, I don't want to say crazy because crazy is a bad term. He was out there, but he was a man of his times. He fought in the Battle of New Orleans, brave. He got people off the street, a militia essentially, and pushed back the British invasion of New Orleans in the War of 1812. That launched him into politics. He, again, I mentioned about him being cut in the face by a British soldier. He was been in many, many duels, shot people. He had several bullets in him that were still in his body his whole life. He took down the Bank of America because it was encroaching on his power of his Federalist power. This wasn't necessarily a good thing, but the Trail of Tears was under his leadership. Essentially, the Cherokee tribe sued, and the Supreme Court, I think Justice Taney said, basically, you guys are, I think it was Taney, I'm assuming it was Taney, say, okay, yeah, I agree with you, Cherokees, you can stay where you are. And then Andrew Jackson said, oh, yeah, you made your ruling. Let's see you enforce it. He basically did it anyway. So transformative. And whether you like him or not, he was influential in the presidents after him. You look at Polk, and he was a big one. He was like, he wanted to fulfill the Jacksonian era. And of course, you had Martin Van Buren as well. And those Democrats just wanted to do what he did. Jump forward to Ronald Reagan and H.W. Bush. Ronald Reagan, transformative. He won the Cold War. It goes without saying, okay? So then you have Jackson, transformative. You have Reagan, transformative. In fact, a little bit later, after Reagan, in 94, you had the Newt Gingrich-led House. For the first time in, I believe, maybe a couple of decades, maybe 3 decades, where the Republicans held the majority in the House. And that was the Contract with America. Speaker of the House was Newt Gingrich, who was in the audience there. That came through taking Reaganism and bringing it out to a younger generation and getting to the polls in that particular midterm under Clinton, which forced him to essentially push forth the very successful Welfare Reform Act, which Clinton deserves credit for, even though he vetoed it a couple of times. But he eventually came to the table and did that because the transformative Reagan ideological coalition under Newt Gingrich and the contract with America made it happen. And now, lastly, we have J.D. Vance, who is coming after Trump, who is at every level Reagan and Jackson. Easily transformative. Trumpism is going forward. And I believe J.D. Vance is that guy to carry it forward. And I ended with this. When J.D. Vance was running when Trump had not yet announced yet, and J.D. Vance was in an interview, and he was basically talking about what we should do as conservatives and how we can get our stuff across. He said, if Trump gets into office, or the next president, if it's Trump, he needs to go in there and just sign executive orders, which are going to get rejected by the courts. I think he said, here's what he said. He said we should fire basically everybody, cut the government by a significant margin across the board. And he said essentially what's going to happen is we're going to get sued by the courts, and they probably will win in some cases. And this is what sets J.D. Vance apart from any other Republican that I've heard other than Trump. Maybe Gingrich, maybe a couple others, but this is gangster. He said, essentially, he should just do basically what Andrew Jackson did, do it anyway, and challenge them to enforce it. That's gangster. That's your vice president right there. And seeing that movie, Hillbilly Elegy, what he's been through, fantastic film, and seeing how he handled that meeting with Zelensky in that Oval Office, and hearing him on the stump on Joe Rogan, just dealing with being on the junket on the in the Sunday morning political, Face the Nation and all that stuff. He handles himself so well. I mean, he's the guy. If Trump can set them all up and get it in a position, he will be the guy to carry it forward, because he's just as much as MAGA as Trump is, in some ways more. And I think he's just as tough as Trump. The only problem with J.D. Vance would be is he's independently wealthy like Trump is. So he's going to need some backing there to get him over the hump, so he won't be influenced by many people. That's kind of the problem with these politicians, is they get bought and owned, and there's no way really around it. You really, you got to run a campaign. Either you get money from a organization that's going to want something from you later, or you get no money now and you lose. So that's the only thing about J.D. Vance that really concerns me, is that he's not independently wealthy like Trump is. So I'm not sure how he totally gets around that. I think the way he does that is Trump has a very successful 4 years, and it doesn't matter, because the money that he gets money from is going to be filled with coffers, because people love the Republican Party. The party's in line. We have good leadership. We don't have that bimbo who was in there before, who lost his 2 elections. I can't think of her name right now. Ronna McDaniels, the Romney niece or whatever she was. If we have strong leadership, strong backers, and people who are tied in with the MAGA alignment, the America First alignment, the populist alignment, where we talk about here on the screen here, which I kept up the entire time for this reason, I think he'll be fine. So long way to go. I think the future is bright, and I'm looking forward to what's coming next. And hey, guys, stay tuned for an announcement when I do our live stream with Nicole, or just a reaction off the cuff with her. Maybe I can get her on Friday. Maybe we'll do it Friday, but that's 2 days from now. So it maybe not be this weekend, but I definitely want to do that and kind of break this down and kind of go through some of these comments here that are mentioned here. Fantastic. So that being said, let me go through like I normally do here. Thank you, SP, for all your wonderful comments here. Wendell and Young, thank you so much. And Man and a Half, thanks as much as well. And guys, one more thing, a couple things. Number one, we are now on Locals. So we are no longer using YouTube as our membership hub. We are now using Locals, and there's a link here. You can see it right here. And if you go out there and sign up there, I think the minimum is $2 a month. We have exclusive content we put out there, at least three articles a week. We're going to do some more membership coverage. Right now, it's pretty much wide open for those to come. It's free. So the paywall hasn't fully been implemented yet, but there is still some content out there that's going to be exclusive. We're going to do a series on the swamp. I mentioned that before. Either I'm going to work with the author of the book, Dragon Slayers. I'm trying to get something worked out there. If not, we'll do a generic version of it, the same historical narrative. I would like to have their involvement as well, because it'd be good to have the ability to use some of the same terms and content from the book without being, worried about being sued. So, but if I can't do that, I'll do it generically. But it's really important for us to understand what the swamp is, how it got here, and where it's going, and how it's being stopped. And I think that's a good effort to do. So that'll be out there that'll be under the paywall. And then dealing with our biblical citizenship and modern America analysis and study. We started that a few years ago. I didn't finish it because some problems with some of the copyrights on that. Stu Wall Builders and the Patriot Academy. We'll do that on Locals as well. That'll be exclusive. And that's dealing with the Constitution, how we got to where we are, what the founding fathers thought, what the Pilgrims were about. Were they really just some fuddy-duddy people with hats and muskets, or were they really principled people who truly wanted to expand the world for the glory of Jesus Christ and his gospel? It's really powerful, and how we can get our country back. Talk about the Mayflower, John Turner, and those guys. It's just a lot of stuff. So check it out there. And if you are on this list here, these are our members on YouTube. If you are on this list, please go over and switch your membership over to Locals. It's going to be a little bit cheaper, and we're going to offer some other things there too as well. Some breakout sessions, some one-on-one sessions as well for just the members. And so thank you so much for all that you've done. I appreciate that. And also check out our podcast, podcast.theconservativetake.com. Me and Greg do a podcast about sports. It comes out weekly. We have another one dropping soon. And it's about sports from a anti-woke, pro-America, old school mindset where we talk about how sports used to be and how it still could be, and trying to me, destroy that woke narrative of what sports is now and what it used to be and how it can unite us. For instance, the Star Spangled Banner before sporting events is something that is done to unite us, to get us in the right mood to buy popcorn, beer, drinks, candy, and all that, and to get us in a good mood before we go to war, figuratively speaking, on the field. So that's what we talk about there on our podcast. It's called Old Glory Games Podcast. So check us out there. And with that, guys, I think we're done. No more comments. It's about 1 o'clock in the morning. Thank you guys if you're still up here listening to me and watching this. I thank you so much. And God bless you guys. God bless President Trump. And I will see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.